Hi, this is Michal Bardavit. It's time for Inside Business. As always, we're going to start with our headlines. We're now joined by Niso Morhayim, partner and attorney at Batı law firm, to talk about the major developments and changes in the Turkish laws here in Turkey. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting.
Okay, I understand that there are a lot of changes and major developments in laws in Turkey. Let's begin by talking what those developments are.
Well, first of all, law is like a living organism. As long as life and the financial situation and business changes in the world, laws, local laws and international laws have to be changed. Otherwise, law will not meet the corresponding issues and necessities of people and entities. In Turkey, we have different changes in different laws. Some years ago, civil law have been changed and criminal law have been changed, and nowadays we have major changes in commercial code and business code, which is very important to us as business law attorneys. Years and years we have been experiencing difficulties explaining the local and international investors, especially foreign investors, how to establish a company in Turkey. Foundation a company was strictly limited. Years ago, for a foreign investor to establish a company in Turkey, they had to deposit a substantial amount of capital. Well, of course, years by years, everything has changed. Now we have a new commercial code which will be in force in 2012.
2012, okay.
Yes. Almost all limitations are nullified for foreign investments. For example, for local and foreign investors to organize a legal entity which we call companies, a joint stock corporation, a limited liability partnership, or different kinds of entities. By the way, an entity in law is like a person. Okay. We have physical persons and we have legal entities. For example, to establish a joint stock corporation, the current commercial code requires at least 5 shareholders, which means if a foreign investor comes to Turkey with his money but doesn't have other 4 shareholders, he will not be able to establish a joint stock corporation. The new commercial code brings new regulations, like with only 1 shareholder we will be able to establish a joint stock corporation, which is a very, very good development for us.
This is a big step, actually, because I think a lot of people have the difficulty to find 4 other shareholders who want to invest in the same firm.
Exactly, because imagine that there is a major investor. He wants to invest in Turkey. We used to force him to find some 4 shareholders, and usually what we did was we founded different entities for him so that those different entities became shareholders of the mother company, which was a long way to go for an investor. Well, I personally am very happy with the developments in commercial codes. On the other hand, we have developments in changes in Code of Obligations which will probably be effective on our daily lives, because Code of Obligations is not for entities only, for individuals either. For example, real estate rentals. There will be very, very big differences from now when the new Code of Obligations becomes in force in 2012.
What kind of big changes? I mean, is this important?
Well, it's a little technical, but if you would like me to give you an example, now we have a private special code for real estate rentals.
Okay.
That code says as long as the tenant pays the rent and doesn't want to terminate the agreement will be renewed each year. Well, this is of course to protect the tenants.
Right.
The new code also protects the tenants, but it brings a limit of 10 years, which means after 10 years from the date of the contract enters in force, this regulation will not be good for the tenant, because after 10 years, the landlord must have the liberty to change the tenant either. This is one of the changes. Of course, there are many more.
Why do they need these changes?
Well, everything is going to be being modernized.
Okay.
The major reason is, we lawyers of the world, not of Turkey, we have a dream.
Okay.
Unified codes, which means laws which can be executable, enforceable in every state. This is a utopia now. I mean,
right.
This is not something to be real, but as long as the different laws of different countries approach each other, the application of laws and solution of resolving the conflicts become easier. And in that context, there is a new convention. Actually, the convention is not new. It's dated 1980, called Convention in International Sale of Goods. Turkey signed that convention last year in July 2010. And according to that convention, it enters in force in a state which signed it after 13 months of the signature, which means 1 August 2011, next month, it will be effective in Turkey.
Important date then. This August we have an important date coming up.
Yes, it is.
And so it seems the changes will make international business running much more smoothly, right? I mean, it seems like the main reason is to make it easier for business people to do trading and everything.
Exactly.
You mentioned before that the Chapter 11 in the United States is now, we have it here in Turkey. What is that? Tell us more about that.
Well, Chapter 11 is the name in the United
right.
States. We call it adjournment of bankruptcy.
Okay.
A legal entity, a company which lost part of his assets, can file a lawsuit before a commercial court and claim for adjournment of its own bankruptcy, or the creditors of that company can do so, which means if the creditors of a company in debt starts legal actions against the company, the company will very likely is going to die.
Right.
Because we have legal enforcement such as execution, enforcement, seizure. This Chapter 11 in the United States means if a company intends to have its business into a better situation, who intends to work to change its situation, the court can give the company a certain period, which is an injunctive relief, which prevents the creditors apply seizure, attachment, or the legal enforcement instruments against that company. Of course, this is not easy. The company which intends to do that has to have a project to change its situation, and that project must be approved by the court. This has been in force for 2 or 3 years, as far as I remember, and many companies that I know, many big companies and in big debts, became healthy thanks to that regulation.
So that's also a good improvement for Turkey. We always used to see this in the movies.
It depends. Regulation is good.
Okay.
Application is important.
All right. Okay. Well, okay. Because we're talking about international law and international business, tell us about whether or not we have a lot of investments here in Turkey. Are foreigners interested in Turkey right now?
Surprisingly interested. I was attending a series of meetings and seminars in Europe, in Luxembourg and Italy 2 months ago, and to my surprise, I saw that especially European investors are very attracted by Turkey. This is probably because Turkey has a rising economy, whilst Europe's economy is going down and down. I would like to tell the specific experience that I had. I met a CEO of an Italian credit insurance company, which have companies or branch offices or offices all over the world. He told me that their office in Turkey, the turnover of their office in Turkey is the second one after Russia in the world. Can you imagine? Russia and Turkey. Russia is number one, Turkey is number two, which was a surprise for me. And I also saw that many investors, also many law firms and attorneys are interested in Turkey.
That is good to hear.
Yes, I will be hosting a group of almost 10 to 12 different law firms from Europe in probably November or December.
Okay, that's good. We'd like to have them here as guests as well. And
Pleasure.
What about, I mean, okay, they're coming to invest here, they're interested in investing in Turkey, but is it beneficial for them, or are the laws in Turkey beneficial for investors who want to come here?
Well, talking about foreign investors, Turkey has also changes in international laws which protect the foreign investors. For example, one of the most important issues is equal treatment principle. That means a foreign investor will be treated as a local investor. This is very important for a foreign investor, because in the past we experienced real big problems with that. The other one that I could say is freedom of transfer of profits. A company or a shareholder which makes profit in Turkey, of course after paying the taxes in Turkey, is free to transfer its profit to anywhere in the world.
That is, I think that's very advantageous for foreigners. I mean, you would assume that they would want to keep some of the money here in Turkey.
Yes, and it's guaranteed by the government. In special sectors, in some particular sectors like insurance or banking sector, we have limitations for foreigners. And we have also limitations on acquiring real estate in Turkey. But when I say limitations, that doesn't mean that foreigners are not allowed to acquire real estate, or foreigners are not allowed to become bankers or insurance companies. Just they have some limitations to protect the Turkish economy, the Turkish business people, and of course the individuals.
But at least it seems like it's at a balance. It's not just protecting the Turkish economy, but it's also protecting the foreigners who want to invest here.
Exactly.
So it's a good balance. Yes. What about regulations for specific industries?
There are specific regulations for energy industry, for genetically modified items. I would like to tell you a bad experience we had. A client of ours was importing genetically modified food in Turkey, and a ship megatons full of genetically modified food had to divert to another harbor of another country because of the daily changes of the regulation.
You're kidding. Wow.
Unfortunately,
that is a big change.
The regulations must be stable. This is the main problem in Turkey. But I know in Europe too, in some specific cases, like genetically modified organisms, regulations cannot be stable. It can change day by day.
Yeah, we're getting more information about it, about food. You know, the more you discover and the more research is done about different things, they're going to have to change the laws about different things, right? Okay, so it's important to have people like you as legal consultants then, is it?
Well, I as a lawyer would strictly recommend to especially businessmen and companies to have their legal consultants, of course, otherwise we would not exist. On the other hand, we have a law in Turkey which requires legal entities to have legal consultants. For example, joint stock corporations whose capital is over a certain limit have to have legal advisors. This is by law. And to my opinion, this is necessary for the health of the business.
Right.
A business enterprise needs to have their financial advisors, their legal advisors, just like their managers and directors.
Actually, I think if you don't have legal advisors and you make all these deals, as you said, they were trying to get to one harbor, but they can't. So they're losing a lot of money just because they don't know.
Believe me, lots of money.
So it's,
and time.
You know, so just pay the regular fees and you actually save money from the bigger picture.
Yeah, we have a saying among lawyers.
Yeah.
Paying the fees in the beginning to lawyer is much cheaper than paying the fees when the problem occurs.
Right, exactly. And problems do occur. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of international conflicts that occur from just these business deals that have not been planned.
Yeah, of course. The more business becomes international, the more conflicts become international.
Are there any examples that you know that you've seen, like this harbor one? I really like that. I mean, what kind of challenges do you face when you're doing these business deals?
Actually, if you want to hear the truth, we lawyers do not like conflicts to be solved in the courts. We prefer to solve the conflicts on the table.
Right.
And that's why alternative dispute resolutions became a very good issue in the legal business. Arbitration, mediation, international negotiation. What we're trying to do is, if possible, to solve the problem on the table before going to the court. Because in Turkey and in many countries in Europe, in the United States and in the Far East, we know that going to the court is expensive and it takes long, really long.
Time.
It's not only in Turkey. For example, in Italy, an average commercial conflict in a court takes about 7 years.
Years?
7 years.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy. So then to be a good lawyer, it's not just about knowing the law very well, but it's also about having very good negotiation skills.
Yes, of course, yes. And knowing the application of the laws.
And what do you think the most important quality is for a lawyer?
To my opinion,
yeah.
Well, being up to date.
Okay.
Of course, a good negotiator. Well, if you know something, you have to trust yourself. And if you know that's good, you have to follow it.
So what I get from you is basically you got to take legal skills from people who are very predictable. They know what they're talking about. And of course, if you're a foreign investor, come to Turkey. We're covering both ends of the good deal. It's a win-win situation right now for Turkey, right?
Yes.
So it's a good time to come here.
It is.
Okay, that's
good.
More
than ever.
More than ever, yes. Really? And before or after August?
After August, even
better, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
That brings us to the end of our show today. I'm Michal Bardavit. Stay tuned on 6 News.